Can you hear me?
I can, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off if everybody could just turn off their video because it helps with the bandwidth.
You don't want to see me?
Well, it just the bandwidth wise, when I start talking, we can do questions at the end. Makes it easier. That's all.
Okay. Hi, Shanti.
Hi, Mama.
Oh, wait, you can't see me blowing you a kiss.
Okay, we're going to give it a minute or two more. Yeah, so we're going to wait a couple minutes because we have some people coming on. And sometimes it takes people to just getting in and all that kind of stuff. It's all fine. So I'm going to keep everyone in the beginning on mute. And if you have a question while we're talking, please find there's a chat, a Zoom group chat where I see Nikki and Shanti are typing. And at the end, I'll just open it up. We'll open up the mics and stuff for anybody who has any questions. I do that because it helps with the bandwidth, because sometimes the bandwidth gets everything a little bit wiggy if we all have video on or talking, because I do a lot of conferences on this, and a lot of times it's like everybody mutes themselves when they're not talking because it keeps everything flowing. So let's just give it, till 8:05 or 8:06, and then we'll get started. All right. Okay, well, we're just going to get started. Anybody who wants to join us can join us. Anybody who wants to watch the recording after, they can do that too. We'll probably do a couple more of these. I have a bunch of different classes that are going to be coming up. So again, I'm going to say we have a group chat. And I'm not sure where it is on your screen, but on mine, it's on the bottom, and there's a little bubble that says chat you can click on. And then it shows up on my screen on the right side, so you can type a question that you have. So I do these live because I could really just as easily do the recordings and put those out there, but I actually like the opportunity to do things because they change constantly, even within this practice and with what we're doing energetically is changing so quickly that there are so many different things that we talk about on every single one of these that I do. So it's funny because a lot of times the practitioners will actually like to watch these too to sort of get updates on their own. And I sort of let it flow. So everybody who comes has a different reason for coming. Everybody has different questions. And so, like I said, feel free to type it into the chat, or at the end, we will unmute everyone. And if you have questions, we can cover them. So welcome, and thanks for joining us. My name is Angela Coulter, and I am the originator of a practice that has just basically been my existence since late 2011. I started teaching in early 2012. I'm the originator of this practice called Trinity Energy Progression. And it is, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me first, and then about how it came in and the understandings and why I believe it's the best thing since sliced bread. But that's everybody's, that's my personal opinion. And I always tell people, I always talk about my experience, my understandings, and everybody's allowed to decide for themselves if it works for them or not, and it's great. So I started doing this stuff. It was interesting. I had a very accelerated spiritual awakening, and what I call a grand awakening, because I think I had it I've had the abilities and awakening my entire life, but started all that in 2009 and quickly came into, this is what you came here to do, hurry, hurry, hurry. I became certified in all of these practices. I'm a Reiki master, Archangelic Light, it used to be called Archangelic Light instructor. I did a whole bunch of shamanic stuff. I was an advanced theta healing practitioner. Let me see what else. I can't know if I can remember all of them. There was something called Shambhala, like 13D healing. There's like all these different healing modalities that I had been that I had been trained in. And as expansive as all of them were, I kept on feeling like there was something more that was coming, which is really funny because I was looking at a string of emails that I had with someone back in like 2010, and I kept on saying, I feel like there's something more that just hasn't gotten here yet. And then in late 2011, this practice came into me, and you can look at it on the Trinity Energy Progression site, which is trinityenergyprogression.com. And in that, basically it was like the way I exploded energetically and the way the understandings came to me, which I'm going to go over really quickly, really brought in a foundation of this amazing practice. And I was so overwhelmed in the beginning to like, okay, here it is. This is what you volunteered to do. Now go do it. Basically, I had like 2 months from when I came into me to when it was time for me to start teaching it, which I did. I taught the pilot class in January of 2012, and I've been teaching it ever since. And now I have 20 some odd instructors around the country. We're hoping to go international. And so it is, it is a practice. It is a modality. It does pretty much anything. It's funny, if you look on the testimonials on the Trinity Energy Progression website, there's one of an instructor who said, there's nothing it's not. And it's true, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So what we're going to talk about tonight are where all this comes from, the foundations of the understanding, and then how it helps to expand pretty much anyone who's attracted to it to a place of infinite ability, to their place of being able to step fully into the divine being that they came here to be without limitations of any kind. And that, to me, is the most amazing part of it, because we are all infinite divine beings. So anyhow, so where we came back, because a lot of people always ask, well, where did the name come from and everything else. So when this first came to me, I saw these 3 bands of energy that were flowing through me. And originally I saw pink, blue, and gold. That was in the beginning. And it was funny because there was like about that time, there was something called the trifold flame that was out, and I had never seen it until after this all came to me. But my understanding was, it sort of started in the middle. My understanding was, well, this is the energy of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and the divine creation that are all within you, that are all within all of us. And that part of what's so important right now is to get to this place where we recognize and own the fact that we have completion of all of those within us. There's no need of anything outside of us, and that really part of it is that full expression of that whole divine Trinity, which is where the word Trinity came from. And it's of course energetic. We'll go back to that in a second. And the progression is that it's amazing how you get the foundation of this practice and it really frees you. The real learning curve is utilizing it for yourself or anybody around you afterward. It's like that's where the uptake of the exponential, the learning curve, the exponential uptake of the learning curve goes, is after you learn it. Because the faster, like then you start accelerating your change and remembrance and stepping into the divine being you are. And then the more you do that, the bigger it gets, the more you remember, and then it changes and you change continuously. It's not the same. It's a very different practice now than it was in 2011 when I first got it, but it's because it's even more expansive, and it has to do with how much we're remembering and where we are energetically. So that's where it started. And then it backed up to this whole perspective of stuff that had been accumulating in my consciousness for a while. And it made so much sense to me because when I was young, so this is really funny because I saw this article today, and I'll talk about that in a second, because when I've always had this perception of, when we look at cells, right? And I don't know if any of you saw this, but there used to be this amazing like presentation. It was like a PowerPoint or something like that, that went around the internet for a while, where it would start with these little tiny it would start with the atoms, and it would go step by step, atoms to molecules to cells and organs and stuff like that. And it would go all the way up to like galaxies and across the universe. And by the time we got to this really big perspective, everything looked almost exactly the same. So that's how I always intuitively felt, that everything was part of this bigger consciousness, and not that there's anything outside of us, that we're a part of something that's much, much bigger. So it's interesting, funny, because part of my understanding is that, you know, we go into this place of divine consciousness, which is that wholeness of the universe. So we're going to go to that now. So when I was getting all of this in and all of these understandings came together, I'm going to talk to you now about the way I understand it, the way we teach, and because it's important to get the foundational understanding, because when we start using it, then it makes it really easy to get the mind out of the way. Because really what this is, it's a tool and a practice to align the body, mind, and spirit all in this place of unified unconditional love, including the ego, which has always been left in the dirt, because a lot of times it's been vilified in the spiritual community. I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. And so what I understood, and what came even stronger to me as I did more and more of this kind of work, is that there's, you know, that we are part of this one huge whole consciousness that incorporates the entire universe, multiverse, whatever you want to call it. And the origination of that, so this is my understanding, and again, I always tell people, check it against your own understandings, and if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, that's great. That's fine too. So what people call God, source, creator, universe, all it is, you know, there's all these different names. But I call it divine consciousness. And we used to call it Christed consciousness, but we got away from it because then people really thought it was Christian based, and it's not, because the word Christed was around a whole lot longer before Jesus Christ was. So anyway, but it's, you know, Buddhic consciousness, it's divine consciousness, it's Christed consciousness, there's yogic consciousness, it's all the same thing. It's the incorporating consciousness of the universe. So the understanding is that when we created this entire universe of duality, the basic understanding is, well, to perceive ourselves, we needed to decide to create what I call a partition, to separate, sort of like an amoeba, put like a partition between us and then look back on ourselves. And that's where the divisions first started. So then we did this in every possible way, my understanding, and it's amazing, like our mind can't even conceive how many pieces of separation we made, how many dimensions, how many individuals and universes, multiverses, everything else that are all part of this one universe, a wholeness, what I call the wholeness. And when I talk about partitions and separation, I say, well, what happened is then we promptly have to be able to see ourselves as if we were outside. We had to pretend that we didn't remember, right? So we had to sort of put this veil of forgetfulness on us. And this is really oversimplified, but it really gets to the point, because in the practitioner class, what we talk about is working from the self outwards, from the individual outwards. But we start with the individual because there's so many different parts of separation. And hold on a second, I saw some people. I'm going to, hold on a second, make sure everybody's muted. Okay, so I'm just telling anybody who joined now that I have everyone on mute, and there's a little chat bar on the right, and if you pop up your bottom bar, there's a thing that says chat. You can click on that so you can see. If you have any questions while I'm talking, you put that in at the end. We'll do questions. We'll unmute everybody. So anyhow, so the way I talk about partitions is sort of like when you go to see a magician, and the magician has their assistant come out and get into this box, right? And they close the box, and the magician takes these slats out and puts these slats, these partitions in the middle of the assistant, and pulls the assistant into different parts. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that. Because we know it's a trick, but yet we're like, oh no, that's just amazing. Look at that. Because we don't see where it's coming from. And then they put the assistant back together, pull the slats out, and then remember, and then the assistant is whole and steps up and out. So that's sort of what we do with this universe, is my understanding. And when we work in class, we start with looking at things from the individual perspective. and the individual I am, which is the manager of an individual, where we have a lot of different levels of consciousness, not just this, like this is the, say like the third out of 11 or 12 in an individual I am, is my understanding. And I'm not even, like, I am all about fluidity because I don't believe we did anything consistently across the universe. So some people might have 12 levels, some people might have 50, who knows? But from a basic standpoint, say, my understanding was, okay, so a lot of us have 11 or 12 levels of consciousness. This is about the third, right? So we get a lot more when we talk about the higher self. And the I am is the manager of the entire, sort of like the manager, the God of our self, right? And then we belong to bigger consciousness, soul families, avatars. Yeah, we can call it collectives, masses, it's all the same kind of thing. So what we have here is this, it's just a piece, and the ego that manages here, the ego is across, my understanding, the ego is across the entire universe and all the way up into individual consciousness of all kinds. And so part of what we do in this practice is realign and not vilify the ego, but recognize its job that it's had, which has been to explore separation. And so yes, the ego has sort of taken over managing here in the 3D, and there is ego at other levels as well. Of if there's an identity, we connect that to an ego. Ego and identity are the same kind of thing, because that's what ego's job was to explore identity. Now we're realigning it to bring it all back together, to align in unconditional love. So in doing that, this whole practice is about, for lack of better terminology, it's basically pulling out all those partitions to remember that we are all this whole amazing, first of all, this whole amazing being at the I am level, and then even bigger and across the universe as this entire divine consciousness. Now, what's really funny about that is today I saw this article, and I didn't get the site, I reposted it on the actual Trinity Energy Progression practitioners group, which is a closed group that we have, that scientists are now saying that they believe that the universe is self-aware, that the whole universe has its own consciousness. And I was like, wow, isn't that funny that science feels like it has to prove what many of us are already remembering, right? So when we do this, part of it is recognizing we are part of the whole divine and we can access it. It's a matter of going beyond all separation and going beyond all the partitions to remember that wholeness, and that we can go to whatever levels we want when we do that. And it's limitless, and it is basically when we talk about partitions too, so separation isn't just identity, it's also all the energies and emotions of separation, which would be like pain, anger, anxiety, regret, resentment, anger, did I say anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, pain, expectation, judgment, shame, blame, all of that are all energies of separation. And if you take away anything from tonight, so many people ask me, how do you discern between the ego and higher consciousness? How do you discern between a message you get from the ego and one that you get from higher consciousness? And I said, well, my understanding is it's very easy. If it comes from a place of any of those energies of separation, fear, anxiety, regret, resentment, anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, pain, blame, shame, judgment, expectation, all of it is ego-based. If it's anything, basically, at the end of the day, if it's anything but love-based and love and unity-based, then it's from the ego. So when we get messages from our higher consciousness, it's recognizing that solidity, the unification, and the calm, peace, centeredness of that message versus, oh my God, we got to do this. That would be ego, right? Or I can't do this, or whatever. So in the practice of Trinity, so what we do is there's so many different partitions that we hold, and every lesson and set of lessons that we have chosen to have are what we have decided that we wanted to experience in separation, right? So within the I am, we talk about things like, when people talk about past lives, and so separations, the partitions include multiple lifetimes to carry out a theme in different packages, different environments, because we are infinite beings that we can do it in every possible way. So why wouldn't we, right? So multiple lifetimes, and then we have parallel timelines that we talk about. We talk about levels of consciousness. We talk about twin flames and what those are within the I am, and collectives, and the wholeness, right? So as above, so as above, so below, as within, so without. It's all, and it all becomes, the more partitions that we release. And I don't really talk about releasing anymore, because we really transcend and see through the partitions and remember that that's what they are, is just illusion. The more we do that and see the wholeness within ourselves, the more powerful we become, because our true divine power is from that unconditional love and wholeness. So what the class does is we focus on, first of all, you come to class, and the weekend is amazing in itself, because all students who sign up are set up to, outside of space and time, to be able to, by the end of class, so however the individual will accept it with the most ease and flow as they will allow, that by the end of class, by the end of the weekend, they'll be able to functionally use this practice for themselves and for others, right? So it could already be happening for somebody. If we're doing it in October, it doesn't even matter. It could be a week before, and however it is, and things will shift and change. And when we come into class, the whole weekend, we're set at a vibration, everybody's set at a vibration, so that all this stuff clears away that prevents them, because really part of the game of separation has been to forget that we can access all of this. Like, we have externalized the divine. We have externalized power and given away our power. And disempowerment has been part of the biggest game in separation. And now it's a matter of remembering that we already have all of this inside of us as the divine, as part of that whole divine consciousness. We have all the answers already. And so the practice of Trinity is all about recognizing that wholeness, dissolving away all of those partitions that are, and it is an accelerated exponential shift from taking this class. You can look at the website, and there's tons of testimonials on there, but it's just amazing. The coolest part about it is how everyone shifts is so very uniquely individual to them and for their own journey. And so when we focus on creating in the now versus looking in the past, and this is another thing that's very different. So this is a very different practice than many of the other modalities out there, whatever. So let me back up a minute. So first of all, when we work in Trinity, the biggest thing that we're focusing on is accessing the divine within and remembering that it's all within us, right? So the key to this entire class is that there is nothing we don't already know or don't already have. It's just a matter of us remembering how to access it. And that's what you get trained to do. And then in your self-practice, you accelerate that remembrance and get beyond the ego to that place of unconditional love and unity, and a place of joy and bliss, and stepping into what you individually did come here to do in your most divine, optimal way. And we also recognize that it's not that nobody is special, because, here's the funny thing. What is really embedded in our spiritual world is a lot of hidden ego of like, oh, well, this person's more special than this one, and they have these kind of special powers. We all have them. It's a matter of who accesses them for whatever purpose. And it's not that nobody's special, it's that we're all freaking awesome. And that's what I always tell people, is that I am amazing and divine and infinite, and I can do anything as long as I remember how to do it, right, and access that. And so are you, and so is everyone here, and so is everyone who takes class. And I sit and tell everyone in class, all of you can be me, all of you are me, and I'm all of you. I'm just sitting here talking to myself in different faces, right? And we're all divine, and we're all perfect and amazing. So we're coming to the plate from a place of divine perfection, because if I didn't need to, and the expectation that we create our entire reality, and there's so many shifts in understanding to get to that as well. But in doing that, we come in here perfect in the bodies and the environments and the families and the way that we do to carry out whatever lessons that we chose to carry out. And it's perfect in that way. So it changes our perspective from saying, that whole like, oh, you'll never be perfect, which is always a sense of lack, right? And that's a very egoic sense of, oh, we'll never be perfect, so why even try? Just be happy with who you are. How about being happy with the fact that you're already perfect as you are, and every moment is perfect to carry out these lessons. So the first thing about that is we're clearing out all of these things that are preventing us from accessing that divine remembrance within us, okay? And when I first started teaching this class, we had an entire day of it devoted to manual clearings because there are so many things that just kept on growing and growing and growing until I was given the remembrance of the way to do that automatically. So it's running behind the scenes in class, and it makes it so much more flowing for everyone. But it gets us past things like, I have to take on things for others, right? A lot of people come to this as empaths and say, well, I'm an empath and I can't help it. And it's like, we can. There are agreements that cause us to take on things for other people. And it's also a matter of worthiness when we believe that we're more worthy by taking things on for other people, or more valuable. And there's no judgment on any of that. These are just recognition of these things and shifting them to a place where they are not in our reality in this moment anymore. It's basically, we are in that wholeness of saying, I can connect to anybody I choose without having to take on their journey or their stuff. And I know because I started there. And so when people say, well, I'm an empath, I'm like, well, yeah. And actually all of us are, but I was quite a wide open one as a child myself, and shut down like a steel trap to protect myself. And then when this all happened, I was like all torn away. All those partitions were torn away. So I was forced into a place to deal with it and look at it and shift the way that I see it. So, and it's a complete game changer in the way that I have no qualms with that anymore. So, and actually I feel it even more and feel the oneness and wholeness even more than ever before, and yet I don't need to take it on as mine. So that's a big thing right there. But anyhow, so when we come from that perspective that everything's inside of us, we stop taking all these extra steps to externalize the divine and pull it back into ourselves. So with many practices and modalities, there are attunement, what we call attunements. And attunements are like what I talk to people about, like when you program the car radio and you go to a certain frequency and it picks up a radio station, you press the button and you hold it, and it'll set that memory so you can get into the radio frequency to hear that station. So when you have practices and energy modalities that have attunements, you're connecting into the divine consciousness of wholeness through a particular frequency, which isn't bad. It's great. And I always tell everyone, everything we do is fabulous as long as it expands us. And then it's time to move into something else when it stops expanding us, when we feel like we're limited in some way, or we're limited by ritual, or that I have to do something a certain way, or that I can't do it a certain way. Then we're giving away our power to the practice, to the ritual, or to the tool, when if we create this entire reality, then we have created the tools and the rituals and everything else, and we can give as much or as little power to them as we choose. So in the practice, that's part of the clearings too, to allow everybody to step into that. And it's teaching everyone all these really hidden things of beliefs, and teaching is really helping you remember the things that we've forgotten or have so embedded that we don't realize are there, limiting us. Actually, when we say I have to do this way, it means that I can only do it this way and I can't access it any of these other infinite ways that are available to me. When we take off those blinders and say, all of this is already inside of me, I just have to remember where to access it or how to access it, then it becomes a much freer feeling. So someone had said to me once when I was teaching in class, well, so basically, instead of like a radio station, you're getting the entire spectrum and you can pick whatever radio stations you want. It's like, yeah, because truly when we are sort of entrained back into the divine consciousness and the divine wholeness that we have within ourselves, and are able to access that power in unconditional love, and unity and wholeness, then it becomes infinitely powerful, and you can choose from that wholeness any piece you want. So what I also tell people is this actually enhances and it strengthens other practices, because you're now then you're cluing in or honing into a certain frequency, a certain kind of practice, or a certain kind of access from the wholeness, instead of the perception of I have to pull it into me to pull it through me, but actually it's already inside of you and you expand it out or you exude it out from you. So it's a very different way, and it's infinitely more powerful than many because of that. And I talk about that because what happens is then when we shift to a place of that creation, right? So first of all, it's another perception that we're stepping outside of space and time. And there is no space and time, and the space and time is created as part of the illusion of separation. So when we go back to that wholeness, we're outside of space and time and space become irrelevant. So we can simply create differently in every moment. And truly, we can shift completely in a moment. And there doesn't need to be a process. It doesn't need to be painful. There doesn't need to be suffering if we so choose. And if you do, that's your choice, and that's okay too. We have a lot of beliefs in place that limit us by saying I can only access this kind of power through suffering or through whatever, because of stuff we've just, created in different forms. And so this whole practice is about expanding beyond those limitations and how to do that, how to access that very easily. And so what happens is shifting becomes so instantaneous and so quick that many people don't even realize it's happened, because guess what? What was in my reality 5 minutes ago is not necessarily my reality now. And it's so funny because there are so many times when somebody will say something to me about, well, what about this that you're talking about 2 months ago? And I'm like, I just have no memory of that because I'm right now. That brings us into complete presence too. But I've had, so interesting, I'll give you an example that I love to give. I did a session once with, just one session with a woman, and it was on Skype, and we had talked about her life at the moment. And she had gone through some major changes. She lost her job. And she said, I lost my job, I lost my home. I'm living in a friend's, house in one room. I have all my belongings in the world in one room. And I really don't have any friends besides this one. And I just want to curl up into a fetal position and die. And I was like, well, let's change that. So what do you want? What would you like to create? And so we worked on that. That's what we focused on. And we looked at core underlying issues, and we looked at, what was optimal, what was her optimal goal in this moment, in this next moment. And so we did the session and get off, and a couple weeks go by, and it's been, 3-4 weeks, and I call her, it was probably about a month, and I reached out to her. I didn't call her, I sent her an email and said, how are things going? She wanted to check in and see how things were, if you felt any shifts or changes. I was guided to do it. And she came back and she's like, well, I don't know if it really did that much for me. She don't know if the session itself did that much for me. She said, but since we talked last, she's like, I got a new job, I found a new place to live, and I met this great group of people that I really jive with and everything else. And I was just like, wow, it was so flawless and easy and immediate that she didn't even realize it was connected to the work that we had done in that one session. So I said, do you realize that that's exactly what we focused on? So obviously, there's some relation there. She was like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Because everyone thinks that there's got to be a process. And that includes with physical stuff, because in divine consciousness, all of it is a part. And it's like I was saying with the person who had written that testimony, nothing it's not. So yes, we talk about shifting physical stuff, emotional stuff, mental stuff, environmental things, meaning things in your life, jobs and situations and relationships, all kind of stuff, spiritual stuff. Getting to that place of true creation and to get our minds, which are connected to the ego, out of the past and out of projecting in the future and creating in the now. And it sounds so simple. And here's the thing, it is simple because the rules and rituals are gone and it is simply access to that divine consciousness. So we give in teaching class, you start with a foundation of how to work on yourself, different perspectives and how to shift ourselves into, to being in a permanent higher state of consciousness and to see things from a bigger picture, get beyond judgment, to be in this place of acceptance. So that when we're in this place of acceptance, and we can look at ourselves in the wholeness and accept the shadow side as well as as what we call the light side, right? And the shadow work is a really big part of this too. Be able to accept the shadow and the darkness as part of the whole and as part of the divine in creation, because all the darkness and shadow is part of separation that we created. And again, it's part of the illusion. So it's a matter of what the lessons were that we chose to have within that. So, so it is so simple that many underestimate its power because of the fact that we do believe that it needs to be complex and ritual laden when it's the rituals we create. And it's coming to this realization that anything here in the 3D or in this universe that we put outside of us is something we created. So it's something we gave power to. We can decide to give power to it or take it away or not have, or just not need it. And that's part of the process too, is to say, you know, it's nice to have tools, but it's not necessary. Like I love my crystals, right? I love talking to crystals. I have a fabulous consciousness, and some people do, some people don't. But I love wearing them, and I have them around, and I use them for different things. But I don't need them, and that's a big difference too. Is there are many ways that you can use different tools, but it's all coming to a place of understanding and knowing how to accept that they're just optional. So it's truly tapping it, and it's taking that full self-responsibility for creation, full self-responsibility for your divine infinite self, and being able to go beyond. So part of it too is knowing that you're your own psychic and how to do all that kind of stuff, how to see things from a bigger perspective, that you are the angels, the archangels, and the ascended masters. And by the way, those are limiting labels in themselves because we're even more than that. And it's just a matter of what level of consciousness that we're focused on here, what piece. And so there's a lot of this stuff, and again, it goes back to this like sort of hidden ego, because we like to feel special. We like to feel like, you know, we're so, you know, important, and we are. If we weren't here, if we're here, we are crucial to the entire shifting of this universe, because this is exactly what we chose to do in the symphony that we created to play it all out. So we all have a crucial part in it. And it's all equally amazing, even the most annoying person that you can think of. That's why we say, that's actually another thing we talk about is getting beyond judgment and seeing things from the bigger picture. So the other thing too is to become fully independent. And so this practice teaches you how to do that. Like I said, be your own psychic. Remember that you are all those angels, archangels, ascended masters, and that anybody channeling anything is still something you can access yourself, right? And it's actually filtered through ego, no matter how good of a channeler it is, and it's not, there's no judgment on that. But when you can become truly independent and getting your own messages and your own remembrance, then you don't need any filters in between, which sometimes can dilute the understanding and the messages. So, and then you can choose to channel if you want. I mean, there are many people in different, we have a couple hundred practitioners now around the country, but many of them are advanced practitioners. They've been doing psychic work forever. It just helped to enhance their abilities even more. They've even shifted to other things that are even more expansive. You can use it, like I said, in conjunction with other practices, because you're just accessing it from a much more powerful, instantaneous place, which helps to even further strengthen them. Until you feel like you don't need them as tools anymore. And then eventually, even this, you get to a place where you recognize, I am always divine, and I'm always divine consciousness. There's never a time that I'm not in there. It's just when I forget that I have to remember, and then eventually you just remember you're there all the time. So it's taking ownership and self-responsibility for all that's in the universe around us and all in our creation. And in class, we cover all that kind of stuff. And so through the whole weekend, it's an amazing weekend, like I was saying. You have all of these like bajillions of different levels of stuff that's clearing out, that's preventing you, that's previously prevented you from accessing that within yourself. And at the same time, that's going on at another level of consciousness. And we're talking about different concepts that are way out of the norm in many cases. So you can see things from a much bigger perspective. We're also doing tons of practice, because we do We do self-work. We talk about how to do the self-work this way and how to shift this and what's the most important parts of that. And then to working with other people in all these different ways, and then to more than people, like houses, like doing house clearings, right? So you could do house clearings, you could be psychic, you could be an energy healer, you could just be you and just optimize your own experience and not have to worry. And like you could do past life regressions, because I mean, all of this stuff is just partitions in different parts of our existence. We can access the Akashic records. We can access any of the tools we have out there without needing to take another class, or unless we're guided to. Like, and sometimes, you know, we're just interested to see what's going on with others, and we can access the full divine consciousness and say, okay, well, anything, you know, is it, we learn to ask our own guidance. Is it highest and best for me to actually do this? Does this actually add anything? And then we get, you know, learn, like, realize how to recognize the true answer that comes to us, our ego. So there's so many elements to this, and it's I could never really encapsulate it all because it's so simple. It covers everything. It really does. And it doesn't matter if you do not do this for a living. This actually will enhance your life if you utilize it for yourself, and if you choose to use it with others. It is a complete game changer, and allows us in this time. What happens is this, my understanding is this came in, and I was one of the people, because there's other kinds of versions of the same thing around the world. I've come across one or two with just different names, because this all came to the surface of remembrance and wholeness and everything else, and getting beyond the ritual and getting beyond the ego, so that it helps to even further accelerate our consciousness and our remembrance, so that we remember that there's nothing to gain to be enlightened. It's only to remember that we're already enlightened. So that's the new foundation, right? And that's all I'm really sort of getting to talk about tonight. You know, it's interesting because there was a quote that I posted today on Facebook, and it said, you know, do the universe a favor and don't hide. I wrote it down. Do yourself a favor and don't hide your magic. Don't hide your magic. It is living magic in every moment. And I cannot even tell you the magical universe that I live in every day, because I can't even, it's so common for me now that it's like I can't even list all of it. And so we can change it. It's also recognizing we can change anything, right? So what my mantras are, and people joke with me all the time, is I always say, well, if you don't like it or you want something different, then change it. You can change it, right? Or if you don't know something, then you can ask. Did you ask? Did you ask what that was? Or did you ask what purpose that was for you? So this is truly, it's a full life shift in perspective. It is an energy shift and true, this huge opening and remembrance and access within yourself. And it really takes you up like a whole bunch of levels very quickly. And I tell people, I'm like, it's amazing when you take class, it's almost like kindergartners. There's like, not with any judgment or whatever, it's almost like kindergartners, because there's all this stuff that we don't realize, we don't remember until we start talking about it. And then people are like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it. It's so embedded in my consciousness. So it's almost like taking a kindergarten class and like literally getting to PhD if you're using it consistently on yourself, like getting to PhD in 6 months to a year or whatever, and going way beyond that. It's just amazing to see what directions everybody's gone in, and really embracing it, because then it becomes, they truly can allow themselves to step into who they can be. And it doesn't matter, it's all kinds of flavors. I call it all different kinds of flavors of ice cream, but it's all ice cream. I love ice cream. So anyway, the class itself is a 18-hour class. Sometimes it's over like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes it's like during the day. And right now we're talking about doing like a retreat weekend to really immerse in the whole weekend from like a Thursday to a Sunday. And we have, so there are instructors all around the country. I do them all over the place. Anyone who's looking, like, so right now we're talking about Michigan. I think there are a lot of people from Michigan on here. I have some people in Michigan, but there's a certain area that we're focusing in, but we're, talking about Michigan. I'm working on a place in Pilot Mountain, which is a couple hours away from me here in North Carolina, which is a nice energy point. I'm like talking to somebody in South Dakota to do a class, but there are also instructors and lots of instructors in Texas, and they do classes regularly. There's one in Seattle, Washington area. We have some in New Jersey. We have some that will shortly be in Massachusetts after the training class in September, and then we're going to have one in Hawaii. So we're really starting to spread out, and the classes are being more and more readily available to people, which is the goal, right? So if anybody's watching who is not in any of those areas and would like to do one, then you can contact me, and we can talk about the possibility and how that typically rolls out. So on that, I'm going to open up. Actually, you know what? Before we open up for questions, let's do a little session together. Let's just do a little group session together, shall we? Just whatever's highest and best. It's all like we're going to bind together. It's sort of like leading through a group session. All I got to do is relax and close your eyes and be willing to receive. And the intention that we're going to set for creation is whatever is highest and best to help you on open up and step fully into your journey right now, like whatever nudge you need right now to allow that within yourself. In its full, easy, fun, enjoyable way. So just close your eyes, and we'll do this really quick for a couple minutes, and then after that we'll come back and do questions and close up. All right, let's go. And by the way, if you're watching this in the recording, you can do this too because it's all outside of space and time. So join us. All right. Oh, some thirsty work. That was lovely. Yeah, a lot of us out there. Another thing that I didn't talk about before was that it's a part of my guidance in building this practice modality was to truly build a community along with it, so that because we speak a different language in terms of wholeness and really conscious observance of the whole shebang of our individual journeys of others. And so the more we live in oneness and wholeness, the more we are so much easily connected to others. And so we have a closed group in Facebook where we do a lot of interchanging in shares, and we do shares with each other, energy shares with each other, and there are retreats that I do, and then there is the instructor class that I do at Mount Shasta, California every year. But that's like even a bajillion times even more mind-blowing than the practitioner class. But really important is I want to talk about the community, because the community is a really important part of this, because as we shift into this place of being able to see such a higher perspective, it's great to have a community with of others that can see it the same way, even if we're all doing very different things. Okay, well, I'm going to unmute everyone, and if anyone has questions, feel free. So I'm going to click on unmute, and everybody is unmuted. So anybody have any questions?
Well, I'd like to say something, Angela.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked with you before, and I've worked with you for a little while now. And anybody who knows me knows, you know, I value the power of silence. Like, if I could sit in silence for the rest of my days, I would be good. But this practice really, not only did it elevate my meditation, but I think that all the words that you use to describe it don't even do it justice, because it's really a process that goes beyond words. It's really a process that just goes right into, it bypasses your heart, it bypasses your soul. It just connects you with divine consciousness. And in this process that you just did, the demonstration you just did, I think that my hope is that everybody who attended got a piece of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because words are, I mean, it does go well beyond words. My dream is to be able to teach the class without even having to talk.
Me too.
We're getting there. But yeah, I mean, because words are tools too. It's right. We talk about that in class a lot as well. Because I always say, well, for the whole 18 hours of class, there's a lot of talking going on, but really what's more important is what's going on in the nonverbal, which is at the energetic level. Yeah.
I'm trying to get Martina to unmute. There she goes. There she goes. Yeah, because, you know, I think that that's really important. Like I know some of these people, like I work with Shanti, and Kate comes to my meditation, and Martina and I connect through our astrology class and group that we belong to. And it just elevates the entire, it just takes you right out of everything. It's like an amazing process.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki. Yeah, you have changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Shanti. Hi.
Hi.
So since I'm on top of a mountain in Puerto Rico with really bad Wi-Fi, is there any place that you have a synopsis of this written so I can read about it since I couldn't hear that clearly?
Yes, you can go to the website, which is trinityenergyprogression.com.
Okay, and there's a synopsis of this there?
There is. I also have there's another video of this. Also, there's a FAQ page, so it covers a lot of the stuff I talked and more that I talked about tonight.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I'd like to learn more about it because, like I said, I wasn't able to hear everything that clearly. So there was a lot of straining going on. And yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Angela,
Yeah.
how is this different from just like regular meditation?
Because it's actually beyond, well, it's beyond it because it actually is doing something. It's focused, well, it's everything. So it's meditation is part of it. Meditation is one piece of it, but then there's all this other stuff beyond it. So you can, with it, access anything within divine consciousness. So meditation becomes more, it just becomes more, because then you also focus on expanding yourself beyond the ego even more in ways that you're not even conscious of doing it until you're there. And then also accessing the wholeness, it's having a way to utilize it. What I tell people, it's a tool to align all thought, word, and deed in that place of wholeness and unconditional love. So there's a process, there's energetic, because you're also in the class, you also go through this huge amount of clearing of all these partitions that you might have had like this nice, a nice level of access before within yourself. But then after class, what it does is it really exponentially opens you up to beyond what you can even sort of think about. And as Nikki was saying, there's really no words about that. That's really challenging to explain. It's just because there's also a whole process on how to, on things to do and what to focus on, because there's a lot of things within the practice itself that help just change our perspective on what to look at. Because when we're just going on into meditation, yeah, we're quieting the mind, we're getting present. And then we're coming back a lot of times and being the same way we were, but this also shifts all of that too. And what we're doing with it. And also in the class, we also work with other people and healing them, helping them heal themselves, helping them access the divine consciousness within themselves, but it's also a healing modality. And pretty much anything that, like I said, it's a tool to access your psychic abilities, your intuitive abilities, because it is being in divine consciousness and seeing the whole and being in that whole consciousness, so that you're not just looking at a part of it and looking from a small piece out, but from the largest piece to any part that you like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Angela, can I say something to that as well?
Yeah, sure.
Well, obviously I'm an avid meditator. So here's what I see the difference being. When I facilitate a meditation or when I meditate for myself, it is about being here in this moment fully, but not only that, it's allowing yourself to be the observer and allowing your thoughts to just pass on by without attachment to your thoughts. So that is the goal of meditation, is to learn how to be in the eye of the storm of life, so as it were. This process, what this does is, because there's an intention set initially, because we're all working in tandem together, it goes beyond that. It takes us out of the storm. It takes us, like, where in meditation I teach, okay, I want you to sit in this moment, sit in the eye of the storm and let your life happen around you so that you don't get swept up in it. What this does is it takes you out of the storm entirely, and the storm like just disappears, and you become harmonious with everything around you. And that really, there's a difference. There's a profound difference between meditation, which I'm very fond of, and this practice. It's the intent. It's all in intent, and intent goes again beyond words.
Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, that was great.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Anything else?
Hi, this is Kate. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Are you able to give like kind of an overview of how the classes are formatted, what the content is?
So we talk about, again, we talk in more detail about the foundation of understanding on how we approach the entire practice. And then we focus on self-work first, and shifting from meditation into really self-work and to really optimize that. And then we go from that into working with other people in different scenarios, like, like say chair, table, like remotely. Also, and then we talk about doing a ton of other things, like all the other things that you can utilize that people wouldn't even think about. So it's a very full weekend because we do a lot of practice sessions too, as much as a lot of self-work and whatever, and sharing. Basically, it is a huge, major clearing weekend for everybody, and it's always amazing. And once everybody takes the class, it's a joke that we have. That's not a joke, it's just something we laugh about within the community, because once you really are indoctrinated to your own oneness and wholeness, back into that full divine consciousness in a way that you don't yet, that most of us don't yet remember. It's interesting because every time somebody teaches a class, like everybody put, like one of the instructors will post up on the Facebook page and say, okay, well, or I will a lot of times say, okay, well, so-and-so's teaching a class this weekend, so just let you know, because then there's another big, huge shift for everybody because we're all in that oneness together. So, yeah, there's a lot, I mean, that's the structure of class, and it's a very full 18 hours because there are things in there, like, we talk about, yeah, all the facets of separation and things to look at that included having to do with what we need to see to, or shift to do what we call healing, even though I don't call it healing, but it's like creating differently and becoming the master creator, and getting beyond all the limitations and seeing and observing the things that we're not even sure, that we don't even recognize as limiting us. And then incorporating things together that many don't understand are connected, and then really doing a lot of practice work on each other, on ourselves. So that by the time you're done with the class, my goal is that anybody who leaves the class is able, ready, willing, and able to do it on themselves, and to do with other people as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we do things like we talk about working with animals, working with the collectives, working with, Gaia or star beings or anything. I mean, there's just so many different facets. It's hard to pin it down.
Okay.
And Angela, all the classes need to be in person, right?
Yes, the practitioner class does. Yeah, because we do a lot of practice with each other and doing sessions together. So yeah, right, as of now, we still do it all. Now, there is a class that I teach, I haven't taught for a while, that we teach also. It's just the self practice of this, and it's called Trinity One Course in Self-Mastery. And that's just pulling that self part out, which is the class that Nikki's already taken. And it's even more so on the self thing. We can do that online because you're only working on yourself, and the practitioner class we do in person because it's with other people as well.
Have you ever thought about doing the second part online too? Because I mean, with really, when you consider that everything is energy, so time, distance, space really doesn't matter.
I agree, and I know that, but most people who take the class don't yet, so that's why we don't yet teach it that way.
I think that that's one thing to say, like we can intellectually understand that, but I think that that's something that to really be aware of that in yourself is a different thing.
Yeah, it's an and also there's something about immersing yourself together in that energy. I mean, and yeah, of course we do it online and it's really powerful anyhow.
Mhm.
But to be able to leave, you know, your everyday life to really immerse yourself in it is really helpful, especially when we're doing it at the practitioner level.
And Martina, think about it in terms of, you know, we took this whole class together online,
Mm.
and then the difference that being together in Boulder really made.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I understand that. But sometimes, you know, especially if you can't do it in person. Yeah, so I was just kind of wondering about that. But yeah, so.
Yeah, that's why we created the self-development class, because then somebody can just take the self-development part,
Yeah.
at least get that started, and then you get to create in a way such that you have the power to create your reality such that you can make the class instead of, you know, not being able to. You know what I'm saying? Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This will be, I will post the recording or link to the recording on the Facebook page. And again, you can go to the website, trinityenergyprogression.com for more information. And if you have any other questions, you can contact me directly as well. And I will post that. I don't know if everybody here is on Facebook, Nikki, if you haven't put them on the event, but I can post my contact info on there.
I think everybody but Hey, Shanti, can you mute your thing? There we go.
Huh?
Shanti, can you mute? I think we're picking up the mountain.
The bird. Like,
Shanti lives on a mountain. See?
Yeah.
Everybody but Kate. But I see Kate every Wednesday night practically.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that might work best because I have a Facebook page, but I'm not very active
Okay.
on it. So
Okay.
Yeah, I see Kate every Wednesday, so pretty much.
Okay. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can shoot me an email at acoulter, ACOULTER, at Trinity Energy Progression. I'll post that in the event. And Nikki, if you want to pass it on, that'd be great too.
Sure.
Okay. Thank
alrighty.
you. Have a great one, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Good night.
Bye.